A few minutes for start. Good morning. We have a special guest today. We're going to have an interview with Aaron Hill. My name is Rory Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today with our special guest, Aaron Hill. And this is Archer Talk 101. And let's start off. Let's welcome Aaron to the podcast. How you doing today?
Pretty good, sir, and yourself?
Doing great. It's always nice to talk about archery, with fellow archers. Uh, one question like this is, when did you get started in archery?
So I got started in archery when I was about 9 years old. Actually, it was my birthday when I turned 9. Dad had got back into hunting in general, and he remembered, hey, I've got this old bow that my dad gave me when I was a teenager. Let me get back into bow hunting. So he got into it, and mom and dad thought, well, we'll try me in it, and so they got me a little Bear Warrior 3 for my birthday when I turned 9, and just haven't put it up since.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's always nice when you get started that young, and so you've been shooting for a little while now,
yes, sir, 11 years.
11 years. Oh, that's getting there. I started back in the 60s, back
There
when
you
your option was recurve or longbow and wooden arrows or wooden arrows.
go.
Yeah, and then progressed into everything else. Now I shoot compounds as well as recurve, and I've been an archery instructor since '95, so I've been teaching a lot of people how to shoot and going on with different things like that. Uh, so what what interests you to make you want to stay with archery?
I don't know. It was growing up, I did every sport under the sun: baseball, basketball, soccer, flag football, because mom wouldn't let me play tackle. And I mean, I did everything: martial arts, equestrian, all of it. But for some reason, archery was just the one sport that I took to above all of the others. Uh, it wasn't a team sport, so I had to worry about letting anybody down. It wasn't uh, super physical. It didn't require me to be in the absolute best shape I could be in. As long as I did my part each shot, I still saw good results. So I really don't know. It kind of stuck with me, pun intended.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of one of those sports that once you get in it and really get hooked on it, you just don't like to give it up. You stay with it. And I've been doing archery for, like I said, since the '60s. So that's almost 60 years now.
Yep.
I was probably about your age when I started. Uh, so it's been pushing 60 years for me, and you just can't let it go. You got to keep in it somehow, and that's always really nice about that. So you
It's
started out,
kind of
you said, with that bare bow. How have you progressed throughout that from that first bow you started with?
so I shot it from the time I was 9 until right before I turned 10. I started getting real serious into wanting to hunt with dad, and that Bear Warrior was not going to cut it. I mean, it's a max draw weight of like 10 or 15 pounds, and it wasn't going to work. So we started looking at other like youth bows that you can hunt with, and so we found Parker. They were still going really, really strong then. And Mission, and we ended up going with a Mission Craze at a local shop because we, and we'll probably talk about this some later. We just really liked that Mission bows actually supported mission work. Um, so we got a Mission Craze for myself, and Dad had ended up with a Matthews Helium Solo Cam, and we just shot all the time. Almost, it was every day for a long time, and just shooting together. Just back then him hitting a dot that was an inch and a half at 20 yards every single shot was just mind boggling to me. And just, I thought he was the greatest archer in the world. And that kind of kept the fire going. And a few years later, I got into the high end bows. Um, I was competing more, uh, learning different techniques, different equipment options, and just progressed upwards from there. Shot Expedition for a while, shot Matthews for a while, shot Elite for a while. Just played with all of it. All of the equipment was good. Uh, right now, I'm shooting. Tournament wise, I'll shoot open, known 50 stuff. I don't have the time with college to practice judging yardage as much as I would like to, because unless you've shot an unknown tournament, I'm sure you have, but
Yeah, most of mine
unless
are.
unless some of the listeners have never shot an unknown tournament, they will not know how much fun that is. But if you don't get to practice that judging in dark woods and open timbers and conifers, it makes a difference. So I shoot known distance, 50-yard max, um, and of course I still bow hunt. I cannot shake that addiction at all. Um, and I coach on the side now, so I'll coach for the Scott County outdoor team. I was on the team for, I believe, 8 years, and this is my second year coaching for them, and I do a little coaching on the side, a little bit of all of it.
Yeah, a little bit of all of it. Yeah. I know out of the 3D tournaments I've shot, I have yet to shoot a known yardage one. Everyone's been unknown yardage. You got to judge them, and you get pretty good at it after a while. Learn how to judge it, and then you get into tree stand, and and now then you got the angles to worry about because what you're looking at isn't right. I remember one time I was up in the tree stand, I was on top of the hill, and here's the trail. It looked like it's a good 40-yard shot, but no, it was 20-yard shot.
Oh,
You learn how to, it's like, okay, go up, there's a tree straight out, it's 20 yards, that's there. Because people don't understand when you turn at that angle, you're actually going to look like it's further than what it is.
right,
And sure enough, deer come by, I shot at 20 yards, made the shot. But it looked like all day long it was a 40-yard shot because I was so far up on the hill and then in a tree stand another 15 feet up. So, judging yardage is good. But now you know what? You have the little range finders,
mm-hmm,
and I got a Vortex one, and it has the angle compensation in it for archery, so that it tells you what it is, and um, you know range it before you get there. But I've yet to use it when I'm out hunting yet. I just got it last year, and I I kind of just know that. I used to go out and walk out the field and put a little orange tape out. So I knew that was 20 yards. I knew that's 30 yards. And beyond that, I'm not going to normally take the shot anyway.
right. Like, we used to take the little flags, that same kind of material, but we would take the flags and mark. When I was first getting into hunting, we would mark out 10 yards in a semicircle around the blind, and then we would mark 20. And if it was between that, just see which one it was closer to and just gap the pins.
Yeah, when you're shooting a little faster bows, then the difference between your a 20-yard pin shooting at 20 yards and 10 yards is about maybe an inch. And so,
Well, this is when I was like 10 and 11, and it was
yeah,
about 180 foot per second.
yeah. Slower bows, you have different pins, and the thing people don't understand is when you start getting the really really close ones.
Mm.
I was at a 3D tournament one time where it was up on a platform, and they had a gator 5 feet from the platform, and so many people it's like couldn't even hit it. They kept missing it, and I'd have people say, "Well, I'll just sight down the arrow." And do you sight down the arrow normally? No. How are you going to hit it? Well, I
Right.
knew with my bow at 5 feet, my 70-yard pin is what I need to shoot. That people don't realize is, okay, you have your eyes and your pins are here, but your arrow is down, from your eyes to your mouth down.
Yep.
And so sure enough, now of course you have to bend it the way. So there's a platform and I'm bending and bending and bending and bending. Finally, I'm leaning over so far that I finally shoot. I nail it where I want it. And I have to use the side rail to get back up because I'm leaning over so far.
Yep.
But you got to shoot those different distances, and rangefinder would have done any good,
No.
because it wouldn't have told you. It had told you, shoot it for 5 feet
Right.
because it was only about 5 feet from the stand. But
See, that's
yeah,
pretty too. If it's under about 6 yards, you've almost got to watch and shoot each foot. Start at like 3 feet, check 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet, 2 yards, 7 feet, 8 feet, 3 yards, and go on back because each foot makes a difference almost.
yeah, yeah, it does. And with I shoot a 5 pin, so I can kind of use that as a rangefinder. If I can get all the pins on the kill zone,
Mm-hmm.
in those lungs, it doesn't matter which pin I'm using
Right.
because my 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60-yard pins, they're all on it. So I'm good to go there. So you start getting out further, it's like now you get out to 20, my 20, top and bottom pin kind of bracket it, and if it does smaller and smaller, you kind of use it as a range finder,
Right.
but you got to do a lot of shooting to figure out, what your pins are doing on the, life size deer size target.
Right.
Then you get into turkeys, and yeah, if you don't know the yardage, you can't use your pins anymore. And so that doesn't really come into play there. So, that's, nice thing about the electronics, is you have the rangefinder. So you can at least range it before you get there. And anything comes in close, you ain't got time for rangefinder anyway.
Nope.
So you got to know the distance before you get there.
Right. And see, like to that point, what I'll do is, and it doesn't matter if I'm in a stand on the ground, because I do a lot of ground hunting, not necessarily out of a blind, but I'll find a nice tree or a nice bush and tuck back into that, because I do a lot of national forest hunts, and sometimes hanging hunt sits are not an option. Going a mile in with 30 pounds of tree stand on your back is not fun.
No.
Um, so what I'll do is I'll range five, six, 7 trees where I think they'll come out. Okay, this one's 20, this one's 24, this one's 30, this one's 17, and just get a feel for the distance. And that way, when they walk through, okay, that's my 24-yard tree. Deer's at 26. Shoot it.
Yeah, you got to kind of plan ahead, what you're going to do. And when you're not good at judging yardages, that's what you got to do. And then when you get on an open field, there's nothing
Oh,
between
heck.
you and it. So those are hard to judge, open fields.
See, like I shot a doe. It was with a crossbow, so you're talking 350 foot per second. Um, I thought she was about 32, 33, 34, something like that. Uh, because this field, it was not flat. There is nothing flat where I live.
No,
Uh, it just kind of rolled, and she walked right under where the field went downhill a little bit. Um, and I had two darker spots of grass ranged. Well, she was past the one, so I thought she was about 34 shot. She was between 20 and 30, somewhere around 25. And I ended up hitting, if you've shot the upper and lower 3D targets, I hit upper 12, dead on it. Good shot, double lung shot, but there was no blood trail for probably 100 yards. She bled internally.
oh yeah. When you're on the ground, that's one of the problems you have is your shot is so high, and then the other problems people have is when you're up really high and you're shooting down with a low exit, it plugs it up anyway. So you
Can
know
you?
Yeah. So you just got to kind of figure out, it's like look for the exit hole. Where you want your exit hole to go. And that's what I tell people who are starting out is like, don't worry about where it goes in, worry about where it comes out.
Yes.
That's the thing you want to look at. If you're shooting uphill, it's going to come out pretty high. So you want to make sure you're shooting low to get through there. And
Right.
I actually prefer, instead of a double long, the long liver because it, does kind of drop them a little quicker.
Never really tried it.
All that
I
happens
always
is that because the liver bleeds so much,
right.
they fill up the lungs,
Okay.
and then they drop down, and it don't take long. It, yeah, it's uh, we've all made bad shots. We've all made them really good shots. And, it's just kind of one of those things that you just have to deal with. And you try not to make the bad ones, but, it does happen. And pretty much any archer that's been hunting very long says, I've never made a bad shot. Is not taking many shots or is lying because
Right.
we've all had them, and I've spent 4 hours stomping through a Milo field trying to find the trail, and we had one had kicked up and left, and um, it wasn't hurt. So it
Right.
just, one of those that there's that one spot on that shoulder that arrows just don't go through,
Right.
and you
Like
hit
there
one
was,
of those, it just kind of bounces off.
yeah, I've had that happen before where, see, I don't like shooting past 30 yards on an alert deer,
Right.
specifically. And there was a deer, he was just a little bit past 30. I thought he had calmed down. I spooked him a little bit. He walked off, came back in, and ranged the spot. See, I hunt with a single pin, and he was taking his sweet time, so I had time to adjust the sight. And uh, I drew back, stopped him, took the shot, and I actually watched him spin enough to where what would have been approximately center of the lungs, he spun away from the arrow, and I drilled right on that spot in the shoulder where the arrow just bounces off. I watched him run 30 yards, stare at me, and he was honest to goodness chasing does the next night.
Yeah.
Didn't even phase him. Scared him, but didn't phase him.
Yeah. I had one like that. It was about 10 yards, 70-pound bow, and hit that same spot, just basically bounced off. There's
Right,
that one spot on there that it just, for some reason, arrows just don't go through it very well.
right.
Now, a rifle, different story, but bows,
A rifle, I aim right there, but with a bow, I steer clear of that shoulder.
yeah,
I do not like, I don't even like flirting with it. I don't like getting too close to
no,
it.
it's shot placement is definitely important in archery. That's the thing that you always got to keep track of is where's that arrow going to go, and the moment I had one I'd been shooting just fine, and this deer comes out, and I draw back on it. It's 10, 15 yards away. I shoot, completely miss it. Like, what's going on? Because before I just drilling where it's at, and then so I had a target arrow with me. I always keep kind of target arrow, like if I decide to shoot a squirrel with something, I'm not using a broadhead on them,
Hmm.
and or just take a practice shot. So I picked out a leaf, shot the leaf. Like I figured out later, it's like I forgot to aim. I just drew up, forgot to aim, and I've been hunting for a long time, So you do that. You just not thinking sometimes, and you get paying attention to it. And I know there's another time I'm climbing in a tree stand. I've just got in a tree stand. I hadn't even really got more, my safety belts on, and my bow's just kind of hanging there because I just lifted it up. Here comes this buck, and I was like, oh, okay, you're coming. So I got my bow, loaded my arrow, squatted down so I can get to the shot where it come out. It steps out, and I shot it. It wasn't until I was later, I was back at my store with the buck sitting in the back of my thing. It's like I can see the wreck. That was big. I never noticed it. it come out. I focused on where I wanted to shoot, and I shot it. And it's like I'd never really looked at the rack. I just seen it was a buck. At
Right,
that point, I'm not hunting for bucks. I want meat.
right,
That's the whole thing. I'm do it for is I want some meat in the freezer, and
yep,
those are just fine, or bucks doesn't really matter.
right.
Actually, I think those probably taste a little better than the bucks, but
They do.
uh, yeah, they're not running around all full of testosterone, and
Right.
but yeah, you just didn't know, and it was the biggest one I'd ever shot, and I didn't even know it was until later that day
Right.
because I never really paid attention.
Like there's national forest right behind my house, and I went up there last year, and it was during rifle season, and where I'm at in Virginia, or this specific county, you get 3 doe days during rifle season where you can shoot whatever you want, and the rest of the time it's antlered deer only. So went up there Wednesday right before Thanksgiving. I saw a doe, couldn't shoot her. I wanted to shoot her, couldn't shoot her. Back the next day, and I thought, well, I'll go about 100 yards or so towards where she came from. There may be a legal deer behind her. And there was. And like you said, I saw the rack. I heard him grunt. I knew he was a good deer. And when I drew back, I did not see the rack. I did not focus on the rack. I just put my pin where I needed to put it, squeezed off a good shot. Deer ran 60 yards, 60 to 80. He went straight down this little steep hill, and so he had a little extra momentum behind him.
And you had to haul him back up, didn't you?
No,
Oh,
I wish. He ended up falling down in this ditch, and which fed into a main ditch that goes right behind my neighbor's house. But this ditch is like 5, 6 foot deep and full of rocks. So it was a very interesting drag trying to get him around everything without busting him up and without busting me up. So, but it was a big deer, probably the biggest bodied deer we've had. I guess between 170 and 200 pounds live weight. We
that's a
just
good
don't
size
grow.
deer.
We don't get those monsters around here in Virginia like we used to.
Yeah, I know sometimes we have some good size ones around here, the 150, 180, you know, not real often, but we do get them. Uh, most of them are around it, the does are 1 to 150 is where most of them end up being. And yeah, you still get some good meat at it.
Yeah,
Really good meat.
off of doe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This, we had Dad shot a 7 point that was he was either 6.5 or 7.5. He was rutted up and injured. At some point, you could tell his rack was one side was really good, one side was not. Uh, we turned everything on that deer that was not backstrap or tenderloin into sausage, and that was still the nastiest tasting deer I've ever had.
Oh
He
yeah.
was awful, but you just peel the silver skin off of a doe, grill her just like that, and she tastes fine.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know. And it all depends what they're eating too. Here in Nebraska, we have the whitetails and muleys both. And, the whitetails around here, they eat corn, soybean, and stuff like that. Then the muleys out, in the panhandle, there's not much corn. It's all, sage and grasses. And, so, they're a little bit different taste than, the deers around here. It's like corn fed. Corn and
Right.
soybeans is, the good part of their diet, because that's what we grow around here is corn and soybeans. It's mostly what the fields are. Some are alfalfa, but that's what they're eating and makes, for better taste of food.
Right. Well, down here, all we've got is an occasional cornfield, and it's usually just regular silage corn. Um, I think there's one bean field within 50 miles of where I live, and it's a little 10-acre field out in the middle of nowhere. So those deer get to eat pretty good, but everywhere else it's field grass and just whatever mast grows in the woods, acorns, hickory nuts. I've not seen them eat too many beech nuts, but that's the main part of their diet. When it snows, they'll eat whatever sawbriar or shrubby bush they can find.
Yeah,
It's
and when it snows, anything they can eat, just something to get that in their belly. And
Yep.
sometimes they, that there's so much snow, they just sit, don't even get up because the energy that they're expending is more than what they're going to get by eating. And I've seen a lot of them just kind of, they don't move around other than move around to keep warm.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't usually get that cold where I'm at. Uh, 0, -5 is extremely cold around here.
Oh yeah, and our winters, it's not unusual to get down to 0 and below, 10 below, 20 below. Although last few years it hasn't been quite that cold, but last year they didn't even need snowplows in the village here that I live in, and like, and some years you got lots of snow, and other years not much snow. I know when I was a kid, I can remember having cars buried in your driveway with snow, so much snow, and it just all each year cycles, and this year's been really dry, so we might have a really bad winter this year. Who knows?
Right.
It just all changes. You just got to deal with it that way.
Yep. We're still trying to figure out what this winter's going to look like. It's going to be interesting if I had to guess.
Yeah. Well, every year's different.
Yep.
There's we've had ice storms for Halloween, and then we've still had t-shirt weather in December. So you just never know. You just enjoy each day. That's the thing. Get out and enjoy each day. And
Yep.
so what kind of struggles have you had in developing your archery skills?
For me, it's been, and this is what one of my students may end up going through. The biggest strictly archery struggle I've had has been probably just listening to too many different coaches. Because you'll have Coach A say do this, this, and this. Coach B will say do this, but don't do this exactly like that. And then Coach C will say this, this, and this. Because, like with the outdoor team, when I was on it, we had 2 or 3 different coaches over the course of the 8 years, and each one was a little different. Um, One would teach back tension, one wouldn't. One taught proper grip, one did not at all. Um, and it was just stuff like that, trying to figure out, okay, this is what works best. This is what tunes the best. This is what actually works for me. And when you have 2, 3, 4 different coaches that you look up to, not necessarily that you are their, not that they're your main coach, but when you have these people you look up to that are involved in your life and in your archery journey, it makes things interesting. So you have to basically pick one and roll with it.
Yeah, that's kind of I've seen that in several other things too. My son was in trap, and everybody was teaching him, telling him something different. And like the poor kid was confused on what he started out his first time shooting a shotgun, he was shooting better than he was after he had shot on the trap team for several months. because I kept telling him something different. And it's like, so he was getting so confused, he didn't know what to do. And that's where you've got to, in archery especially, because there's so many variations in. I teach back tension. I've been teaching back tension since '95,
Right.
and with spending over 20 years doing Hapkido and martial arts, you'll learn, how you're most efficient in putting your force in. And I've
Yep.
kind of incorporated some of that into it as well. And you see some of them will teach in the arm is instead of being out to the side, it's more of a big angle. And you watch when their arm goes off, the arm goes flying out. And there's just so many things that you can do. And um, the coaching I have an online coaching program, and I have several videos in the program that show you how to do it. And the advantage once you get into live stuff, like either live or I do mine online, so that it'd be like a Zoom call, like we're recording this on, and each person's a little different. Here's the starting point, but you got to modify it because what's going to work good for me may not be what works good for you. What works good for you may not be work for somebody else. And
Right.
with teaching martial arts for so many years and teaching archery for so many years, I've learned how to adapt the techniques to that person. Because
Right.
everybody's body's different. Our strengths are different. Just each body has a different problem. I know one guy that I was helping. I've got a Facebook group, Arch Talk 101 is
Hmm.
the Facebook group. And there we just talk about archery stuff. And one of the guys on there, people will post like, how's my form? And
Yep.
some of these other groups is like, and they get tons and tons of different opinions. And I say, you know what? Come to this group. We have an instructor there with over 25 years experience teaching it, and that's them. We'll give you, hints and tips. And um, I made a comment on his wrist when he's holding the bow. He wasn't really holding it, what I'd say correctly. And then come to find out he had a physical problem, so he couldn't.
Right.
And he started off with probably 6-inch groups.
Hmm.
So I got on a call with him for an hour, just kind of when I was setting up my coaching program, just to kind of see how things were going, how it's going to work out. And so I got on the call with him for an hour. And then, it wasn't just a few weeks later, he sent me a picture, 3 arrows touching,
Right.
because, we fixed his problem because he can't shoot the way you normally teach, going through, the correctly holding it because his hand wouldn't go that way. There was a physical limitation that you couldn't do it. So when you go through and you have to modify it,
Right.
other people have different things, different body styles. Sometimes you just, some people have really big muscles and you can't do it exactly like everybody else because the size of your muscles, or if you're a little weaker you have to change things on there. But there's a lot of things that we could do as coaches to help you out. But if I'm teaching him one thing and somebody else teaching him to do something different and somebody else doing something different like you just said, what do? You got to pick one person and go with what they're teaching. And if you
Right.
don't like it, change coaches.
Right.
you know there's there you know there's all kinds of different coaches. And I know when I was working at the archery shop, being a bow tech, we'd have guys come in and they're used to using one of us as the one that works on their bow.
Mhm.
And one of the guys was telling me, yeah, he had a line of people. It was 3 hours to get in for him to work on a bow. There was other techs there, but that was the guy they worked with, and they
Right.
would wait 3 hours for them to work on it. Said have somebody else that's just as capable
Right.
because they trusted that person.
Yep.
And I had guys come in. And it's like, that's my guy. Comes in. Oh, I'm the one that can work on the equipment. And you just got to find somebody that is going to be looking out for what's best for you. Because you know all of us teaching back tension, yeah, back tension, but there's multiple different ways of doing it.
Right.
And different techniques. Yeah, you might be using back tension, but if you're not using the trigger finger correctly or the thumb correctly, it doesn't
Right.
do a whole lot of good.
Right.
So I teach, I put the handheld one clear back into my thumb because you don't pull the thumb because there's less dexterity in a thumb than there is in a finger. So why go to a thumb one and try and use that thumb to pull the trigger? You know, there's a lot of different things in there, and I've seen people. It's like put the finger out, and then all of a sudden they just
Oh,
cram on the trigger, and it's
yeah,
like, when I had on my 3D rig, I have my NFA archery instructor patch on it, and figuring if anybody wants any help, they can see the instructor patch, they can ask me. Otherwise, I don't normally go up to somebody and say, hey, yeah, I can help you out.
right,
If they're struggling, start asking questions, then I help them out. But
right.
so you said you're doing some coaching for a group. Um, Tell us a little bit about what you're doing for your coaching.
Well, the group is the Scott County Outdoor Team in Scott County, Virginia. Um, we do it's kind of like a 4-H team where we do shotgun archery. It's 3D archery, unknown distance out to 40, um, 22 rifle, land navigation, using a map, well, using a compass to find points on the map. Um, we do a hunter safety test, and we'll go up to Appomattox, Virginia every year for a tournament against all of the other Virginia teams. Uh, what I specifically do is help with archery. I would say archery and map and compass, but I'm the gopher coach because I'm the youngest. Go for this, go for that, and
Yeah.
but the main thing is really try to work with the kids on archery. Dad's the head coach. I'm the assistant. Um, so I'll give them a round or two to warm up, and then because the students we have this year are all returning students, we're never mean with our coaching, but we will get a little more stern, a little more particular. Okay, you guys know what you're doing as far as you know what to expect. You're not new to this. Let's get to work. Let's really start to hone in one thing at a time. Let's work on your grip or your trigger or your stance, whatever it is. And I don't like giving them more than one thing to work on at a time. I like to really hone in on whatever is the whatever I feel is the worst flaw in their technique. Okay, let's work with your grip like this right here. Let's do 3 shots. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's do 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Of course, they pull in between. Give me 3 more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Do you think you can work with that for a little bit until I can come back? I'll try. Okay. So we work on accountability with archery. We work on responsibility with it, and they usually seem to do really well that way. Um, as far as private coaching, what I've been doing is I've got 2 main students. It's a pair of brothers. One, we're still working on getting the overall form down because he's still wanting to, he's using an index trigger. He's still wanting to, as soon as he pulls that trigger, jerk his head back to watch the arrow in flight. And,
Seen that a
uh,
lot.
yes. Um, and usually for him, this goes with instead of pushing the bow out or pushing it maybe a little left since he's a right handed archer, he's wanting to go this way to move the bow out of the way as well, just to watch the arrow. Excuse me. He's been doing a lot better, but what I've been doing with him is 5 spot, the NFAA 5 spot, 20-yard
Right.
target. Um, because he does not like shooting the same spot every time. It makes him nervous as all get out, thinking he'll bust an arrow, which is actually a very good benefit for him and his parents because we know he's not going to intentionally bust an arrow. So the 5 spot works really well for him. His brother, on the other hand, has his form a little bit better, so the 5 spot gives him trigger time. He just needs experience. His form is good, but he needs the experience to really solidify his shot process in his mind that he knows what he's doing. Because let's just say I can get in his head just on the line. Of course, I'm the coach, I know what to look for, but he's somebody who a competitor at a 3D range could really get in his head. And so the 5 spot for him is just getting that muscle memory, that shot process, that confidence that he needs mentally to be able to execute a good shot. So 5 spot for private students as of right now. I'll probably move the one that just needs trigger time when he starts busting. He's shooting a bow hunter setup. When he starts busting 300 with 40, 50 X's, I'll switch him over to a Vegas face and give him a new challenge where he just really has to hone in on that really, really tiny X ring. Because with him, he needs the experience. He needs some mental game work. So I don't really have different techniques of coaching, but different stages of coaching, I like to call it. Just depending on where they're at, I will work with whatever they need.
Yeah, I know what helps out a lot, learning technique is shooting with your eyes closed.
Yes.
And I know when I was first learning back tension release, they had us standing up so close that, we could just bend over and grab the arrow. And there was like 15 or 20 of us down there shooting all at the same time, with our eyes closed. So you have to be close.
Right.
And you draw back and you finally get the techniques. Good release. Open your eyes, it goes crap. And
Yep.
it all goes away. Close your eyes. Finally, you can open your eyes. And no target.
Mm-hmm.
There's no target. In fact, shooting without pins would even be better because there's nothing to look at.
Right.
And so you finally get through all that, and that might be something the kid that likes to watch his arrows. Just have him shoot with his eyes closed until he quits moving the bow.
Right.
And now it's like he's so used to doing that, eyes closed, and then next thing you know, you open his eyes and it's like, nope, got to shoot your eyes closed. You open your eyes and you start looking, got to shoot your eyes closed, make him shoot with his eyes closed all the time. And, of course, I tell people that it's like, okay, but you got to make sure you have a safe place to do it and somebody watching, because in case somebody does walk in front of you, um,
Right.
you don't want to, you want to know where your arrows are going. And, when you're standing, yeah, arm's length away from the target, nobody's going to walk in front of you.
Well, the way I've got the range and the target set up, it's in my yard, but the way I've got it set up is I could have his brother shooting the 20-yard 5 spot and him shooting the blank bell right next to each other as though they're on a regular shooting line. Um, I've got the targets and the space to do it safely. So I may give it a shot with him. He's been doing better, but it's like that stage 3 of completely clearing that up, and he
Yeah.
he's fighting it hard, but that might really help him get past that last little crap, I did it again, or just might help him break through. But
Yeah, there's so many different techniques that you can use to train, and it's just knowing which one to use at the right time is the key with each person. And that might work great with him, but the next person it may not work at all. They you just gotta, try. It's like, this isn't working. Let's do something different, and just keep moving around.
Well, like with his brother, um, where I said he just needs the trigger time, I knew there were two main ways I could do that, whether it be the 20-yard five spot or the blank belling that you're talking about. But I know with his brother, blank belling would not work. It would kill him. Uh, and his problem right now is punching it. Um, Instead of having him use the very tip of his finger, I have him use, I think he's right here, right before the joint, but still past even the fatty part of the pad.
Right.
Um, and so I'm working with him. Okay, get your finger on the trigger, get your finger on the trigger. Just feel the trigger before you even start aiming. After he anchors, but before he starts aiming. And the way he has to anchor and line up, blank belling, just pulling back and finding his anchor would not work with his eyes closed because he wants to double check the alignment from his peep to his sight. And if his eyes are closed, he's gonna get that off. Just him personally. So that's why I have the five spot because it gives him that repetition of doing the exact same thing every time. And it's weird, but it works for him. Like you
Yeah.
said, finding that perfect, close to perfect process for each archer.
Well, and with him, you might have to look at pulling back with his eyes open, get his anchor point, and then when he's ready to shoot, then close his eyes and then go through the shot. Um,
Right,
I one thing that might help is teaching instead of being the first knuckle, go to the second knuckle, clear up here, so that you're in there. So it takes a lot of this movement of the finger out of it, and now you
right,
can just put pressure on it. You can still make it go off, but you got to really make a fist, and then as you pull back, it fires it. I use a trigger one as well as a wrist strap with a trigger on, as well as a handheld, and
right,
I shoot both of them. And anchor point changes a little bit on my hand because your hand's this way, with the knuckles flat as opposed to being pointing up. But because I use the peep side, I have a kisser button and my tip of my nose, and those three lined up. It doesn't matter where my hand goes.
right. Well, like with him, the brother that needs just the trigger time and to work on the middle game, uh, they asked me what release they should get him if he's going to stay with the trigger, and I said True Fire Edge. And I'm not trying to promote a particular product, but with that one, you don't have to spend 150, $200 for a trigger with anti-punch technology or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Um, but you can set it to where if he tries to yank on it, it's just going to jerk him around and not go off. I can set it that cold where he just has to sit there and just squeeze through that shot. And I've tried the second pad of the finger, and it just it doesn't seem to work as well. He likes, and when I say he likes, I mean what seems to work better is right there where he can just still do that same squeeze through,
Right.
but that's what's scoring better for him right now. Uh,
And that's the point. It's like we need to what works best for him. What works best for me is the second knuckle, but it may
that's
not.
what I
It's for me when I have to really put my hand in tight to get it behind the trigger because when I pull, I put my finger behind the trigger. So
Yep,
you can't pull it.
right,
Had a friend of mine one time. He used to always shoot fingers, and then he went to a release and he smacked himself in the mouth. And I said, "You pulled the trigger, didn't you?" It's like, "No, I didn't." Yeah, you did. You put your finger in front of it and you touch the trigger, it goes off. And what are you
right,
doing? You're drawing back to your mouth and you smack yourself in the mouth. So that's why I said put your finger behind the trigger because you can't pull if it's behind. And the problem when you have that second knuckle is it's really, really short to get your finger back behind it. And
right,
if your hand's not flexible enough to do that, then you got to go a little bit further out so you can get your finger behind it when you draw. And it's just all kinds of different tricks that we learn over my 25 years of teaching.
Well, like those two, the brothers, and a guy I'm working with that's actually coming to the house tonight for me to work on his bow. Um, all three of them had like you talked about earlier, that trigger that was way too long, and so they had to do this kind of.
Yeah,
I mean, they would barely get the very, very tip of their finger on the trigger, and they would look like this right here, and it just this be one motion instead of or
yeah.
whatever their timing is. Um, and like the guy coming tonight, uh, he had two releases. He likes release A and he'll shoot release B. Release A is the little bit older style trigger release. Um, Still a wrist strap, but where it had the long all thread screw and
Oh
the
yeah.
nut down at the. So without taking it apart and cutting part of that rubber off, I couldn't get it short enough. I didn't want to do that to him yet, so I had him working with release B, uh, so he could actually get that finger around and squeeze through the shot, and that release works better for this anyway. Um, just a little bit cleaner for him to squeeze through that shot. And I had to tell him what I told one of the brothers: get your finger on the trigger. Get your finger on the trigger. You anchor, you line up. Before you really start focusing on your pin and the target, put your finger on the trigger. Eventually he would do it, as he would just sit there and aim, shot break, and he starts shooting a little better. Um, and he actually had a problem I've never seen before. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it since I've been a coach. And that is, he would sit there and stare at his level. He would check his level as soon as he anchored. He'd look at his pin, look at the level, look at his pin, look at the level, look at his pin, look at the level, and you never knew which one he was going to be looking at when the shot broke.
Oh,
I kid you not.
huh.
It would
Yeah,
usually be the pin, but he would look at his level at least 3 to 4 times during his shot cycle. You could almost set your watch by it because the timing would be so consistent.
huh. Yeah,
But
I have a level on mine. I draw back and I'll check it when I'm first getting something set up, and then I never look at it. You
right,
know, if I'm shooting on a hill, where I have to lean,
right,
then I'll draw back and check just to make sure that I'm not leaning the bow too far over.
right.
But you shouldn't have to check it constantly.
No.
And I've never heard anybody that was doing that. I don't. In fact, I don't even look at it anymore because my grip, it just lines up. I come back, I know what it feels like if it's level, and I don't think about it anymore. Him, you might
See,
need to take level off.
we'll save that one just for the time being. I think he
Yeah.
still needs it right now. We had to change his grip day one because he was just trying to He-Man squeeze it to death,
Oh
and
yeah.
we're gonna keep the level for now, but that may be something we look at later. Oh, what was that other thing? Uh, well, it slipped my mind now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Have a little timer so once he's at full draw, the level is only visible for just a few seconds, and then it just flips over and covers it, and now then you can't look at it no more. You had your chance to look at it.
That would actually be a good idea. Which, like for me personally, where I run a single pin on everything, I mean, I'll look at the level when I first line up, but I don't look at the lines on the level. if the pin is right in the center, and that you can do this with a multi-pin, hopefully, all the multi-pins I've had you could. If the bubble, if the pin lined up with the center of the bubble, you were good. And so you wouldn't even have to directly look at it. You could sit there and aim and just basically check level subconsciously. And if it was off, of course, your mind would alert you, but just sit there and aim, and all of a sudden, hold on, that's off. Okay, now we're good. Execute the shot, hit the dot.
Yeah, your pins can, if you like a single pin, a little bit different, but a multiple pin one, you have that line and you can look and see, does this look like it's going straight?
Yep,
And, glance at your level. But because I can't remember the last time was I actually looked at my level.
right,
I just draw back and go. And, if you're shooting close distances, it doesn't really make much difference.
right.
But if you start shooting them longer ones, as you start canting that bow over, now then you're moving off to the side. And,
Yep,
that's one of the things that you can do to test it is, take and shoot, 20 yards, shoot your 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever your pins are. And if those arrows don't go in a straight line up, something's off. And it
right,
could just be you're holding level, or it could just be that your sight needs to be adjusted.
right.
That because when you put them on there, most of them are parallel to the limb. Some of them are off just slightly. So that's why, you have that third axis adjustment on some of your sights, your higher end ones. So you can, I have a jig that I used to set them up where
Yep,
you can tilt it down and you can check the level, make sure it stayed level all the way up, whether it's straight and then down. If it doesn't, then something's off. You might have to put a little shim on one of the bolts or both the bolts or something just to get that where it lines up perfectly. But now
yep,
it's on the new ones. They have that actual third axis adjustment just for that, so you can adjust it and give you that perfect one. But as a beginner, don't worry about
nope,
it. No, beginners, you don't need to worry about that. Just get your pins on there and go and shoot. And like when I had my store, um, I didn't recommend the high end bows to beginners.
no, don't.
Well, for one thing,
Cost.
I didn't want them to spend, at that time, a high end bow was $800,000. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
want them spending that when they could spend a $150, $250 bow. If they didn't like the sport, they got a $250 bow sitting in the closet as opposed to $1,000 in the closet. And I just
Right,
couldn't do that. And they don't know the difference. The same thing with putting stabilizers on. I'd try the cheap one and see how it felt. Put the more expensive one on. It's like, tell the difference. No, buy the cheap one.
right,
And I made more money on the more expensive ones, but that's not what that's like what's best for them. And
right.
then the other advantage is once they get into it, they're going to buy another bow.
Yeah.
If they buy that $1,000 bow, they're not buying another one for a long time.
No. We'll see, like what you said with the stabilizers. Um, on Facebook, you'll see the questions in various groups, Archery Life, Archery Talk, your Archery Talk 101. Oh, what stabilizer should I get? What stabilizer should I get? And you'll see half of the people recommending Bee Stinger, Conquest, AAE, and all of those are good bars. But if you're shooting under a 15-inch bar, really under a 20, 22, 24-inch bar, it doesn't make a difference. That carbon is stiff enough at those shorter lengths. You're not going to tell a difference, except in the physical mass weight
Right.
between a 10-inch Bee Stinger and a 10-inch Omega Archery product stabilizer, or let's see, uh, Risen stabilizers. Both of those are good friends of mine. You're not going to tell a difference. It doesn't, that pretty brand name doesn't make a difference in accuracy.
Yeah, you just have to look and see what works best on your bow.
Right.
Put it on there and see how it affects it. Is it way too front top heavy? So as soon as as it's going off, it's dropping right away. Or is it kicking back, which means, you need a little bit longer one or a little bit more weight. What is the bow doing when you shoot it? And you look at that, and if you can't tell the difference, doesn't matter. I had my one bow, I had a stabilizer, it was about 3 inches long. It was mostly there to hold the sling on, but because I did that wasn't the bow I did a lot of shooting with. Wasn't my hunting bow, and I did most of my stuff with my hunting bow. But when I got my the second bow, which my second bow was a new one at the time. It was like a 2003 PSE.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hunting bow's a 2001 PSE.
Nothing wrong with
So
it.
I was a PSE dealer for a while, so I had a lot of PSE.
That PSC still kills deer, don't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, it still does.
Yep.
I have an old Apple press. I can press both those bows in it. I do have a newer Bear bow. When I worked at Cabela's, they had one that come in. I think it was a string or something was bad on it, and so I could buy them really cheap. I could buy a $900 bow for 100 and some bucks just because it was it'd been returned because it was defective, and it wasn't limbs defective. It was something else, and it's like, hey, I'll buy it. I
Yep.
still haven't set it up, but I have it. It's in a snow camo, but that's a Bear, and I just I had a Matthews before I had my store, and they're all good shooting bows.
Yep.
There's I had people say, well, I want the best one. I want a Matthews. It's the best. Why?
Right.
Because the advertisement tells you so. Shoot them and see. I
Right.
had one time PSE brought Browning, and we're making up Browning bows, and they
Yep.
had this one bow come out. I think it was the one with the dual counter rotating cams. They
Yep.
had one come off a little bit. The cams rotated opposite directions, and it's like I wanted to shoot it. It's like, oh, but I like this bow. It's like I'm shooting it. I just could not get it set up for me to shoot. No matter what I did, it didn't fit me right. I couldn't shoot it, and it's like, okay, sell it to somebody else that'll fit because it just wouldn't fit. And you
Right.
just have to go through that. Just go shoot the bows and
Yep.
see what you like, and don't
See,
pick a
like,
lot of them. Pick two. Which one you like better? Okay, I like this one better. Why? I had a guy out there end up with 6 bows on the floor, and he says, okay, um, shoot this one, eyes closed. Shoot this one, eyes closed. I'm going to hand you one because they're all set up, the same draw length.
right.
And which one you like better? I like this one. Why? I didn't care why. I was like, well, it's like, okay, let me now 2 more bows, and finally narrow it down because I had too many bows, couldn't make a decision. It's like, why? It could be, I don't like the way grip feels, or it's like, whatever reason. You know, I had to ask him because it didn't matter what his answer was. He just had to express why he liked one better,
Yep.
and then go through and picked out his bow.
Yep.
But that's what you got to do. Shoot them.
Yep. Well, see, like I have Dad's using it now, but I have a Matthews TRX 38 that's my open bow, was my open bow, and shot good. I mean, shoots phenomenal, but I could, honest to goodness, put a half a twist in the string or take a half a twist out, and it would just completely change the feel of that bow, and neither one felt right. It was so close to my draw length, but neither one felt right. So I ended up changing. Played with a TRX 34 for a while. I'm a sharpshooter for a Matthews dealer, Beverly's gun archery and pawn up in Coburn. Um, so that's why it's all Matthews this year. Played with a TRX 34 for a while. The axle was too short. I would put my hand, your anchor is 3 parts: hand to
Right.
release, hand hand to face, string to face. Basically, each one of those has its own little variation. But I could put my hand in the exact same spot every time. But that face to string, I would still be searching for it every single shot. I shot the bow great. I mean, both the 38 and the 34, I could shoot 1-inch groups out to 50. No big deal. Got a TRX 36. That fixed the problem. Just that one size right in between the two fixed the
Right.
problem. Um, and I'm not saying that any of the TRX are bad bows. It was just my personal fit. The 36 works best. Um, and it can, draw length can change between different manufacturers. Like Matthews runs 1/2 inch to 5/8 inch long. I shoot 28-inch draw length mods on those. On an expedition, I shoot a 28 and a half, roughly. Um, Hoyt, I shoot 28. I think Elite, I think it's 28. I'm not sure. I forgot. Mine doesn't actually. I had the Elite Encore last year. It didn't actually have the numbers on it. It just had like A, B, C, D, E, and you put the mod.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't actually know what it's at. I would have to look up the manual and see what the longest draw length is, count down from there. But um, just different bows feel different, and you have to find the one that works best for you.
Right.
I took a hunting bow to collegiate nationals last year, and we don't have to discuss the score, but I set my personal best 12 count in an open division with a hunting bow, 33-inch hunting bow. People next to me had 36, 37, 38, 40-inch target bows. I had a 33-inch hunting bow with a sub 7-inch brace height. Set my personal best 12 ring count with it. So just you have to find the bow that fits you. Don't
Right.
worry about the brand. Don't worry about nothing. Like you said, go into a shop. Hey, can I shoot a bow? I'm looking for a new bow. Can I shoot a couple different ones? Yes, that's what we're here for. So, excuse me, just a second. Phone call.
You want to stand?
Stan, sorry. He was out on the porch working.
Oh,
And I forgot to tell him I had this call. Uh, but and that's the answer me and Dad both give is just if you're looking for a new boat, don't worry about the brand. Just find something that fits you, that works with you, um, and hopefully that works with your budget. So you may like that $400 bow or that $200 bow better than the $1,000 bow. I mean, that's happened several times with people we've worked with. But
yeah. That's, you just got to get what's nice for you, and just starting out, I like the ready to shoot kits, where
yeah,
you have everything on there. You don't have to worry about what sight do I want, which quiver do I want, which rest do I want, and you just got to pick out your arrows. And starting out, go with the cheaper arrows. You're not going to group as well with the cheaper ones, but right now you're not going to group anyway.
right,
So just start off with something inexpensive, and then later on you say, okay, well, I want a better sight. Now you have some idea what you're looking for, and then you
right.
go try out the different sites and upgrade the site. And you're better off, with a lower end bow and higher end accessories. Same
Yes,
thing when I tell people looking at, you're looking at a rifle.
yep,
That cheap rifle is going to work good. If you have cheap optics on it, you're not going to shoot very well. You need better optics. If you can't see, then you can't hit it. So it just
right,
all depends on how you want to, outfit it. And nice thing about starting out with something like that is you don't have to think.
right.
It's okay. What do I want? Start with that, and you can always upgrade.
Well, to
And then
your
when you decide to get a better bow, you can take those high end accessories, put them on the new bow, and put the other ones back on it, and now you have a backup bow. You
yep.
know,
Well, like to your point, I had the Mission Craze back in 2012, and I still have it and use it for a loaner bow for kids on the team because still works great, still shoots great. Um, when I decided to upgrade the sight, I put a sight that was, I think at the time, it cost more than the bow did.
Yeah.
And I won my first pot of money. It was like $7, but to a 12, 13-year-old kid, winning $7 in an archery tournament means something.
Yeah.
And uh, I won my first pot with it, with a sight that was worth more than the bow. And um, I'd put a better stabilizer on it, a 10-inch stabilizer with a few ounces of weight, and bow shot great. Uh, I did actually put a string stop on the bow as well. The Craze didn't come with one from the factory. But like you said, get a cheaper bow starting out, upgrade accessories when you feel it's time. Don't just buy a ready to shoot kit and a month later change an accessory. Give it a little time to soak to figure out what you really want. Uh, it just it works better.
Yeah. Work on your form. Your form's more important than the bow.
Yes,
You can take that top end bow, and if your form is bad, you're not going to shoot good. You can
right.
take with really good form and a low end bow, and you can outshoot the guy at the high end bow because your form's better. So
Yeah.
that's the thing, and that's why we go to a coach, like you or myself, to get those help, get that help, and um, it cuts
Well,
down a lot of time learning how to do it.
to your point again, um, that first pot of money I won, that $7, $13, whatever it was, uh, I had the Mission Craze with uh, it was a CBE sight, um, the 10-inch stabilizer. I was shooting regular arrows, just regular PSC radial X weave 200s. Um,
Those are good arrows.
awesome little arrow for a youth. Um,
That's all I
I
shoot is the PSE arrows.
I abused the daylights out of those arrows, and the one of the people I won was a buddy of mine. He's in the army now, but he was an awesome shot before he left. Uh, he was shooting a completely open setup point target bow, uh, 24, 26-inch front bar, 10-inch back bar, whatever, target sight, target sized arrows. Um, but I was working at it and he wasn't. I was practicing most days of the week, maybe not every day, and he would shoot Saturday night when they had a tournament. He just didn't care. Now, when I beat him, I didn't touch him again for a long time because he refused to get beat by me ever again, or anybody that had a bow that was not as good per se than what he had. And I didn't beat him again for years. But still, it doesn't matter what you're shooting if you're working at it. If your
Right.
form's good, and
He
he
just
got his
started
form in
practicing
line.
more.
So yeah, yeah, it took me a couple of years to beat him again, but when he worked at it, he was untouchable, and he had the mental game down. There was no trash talking him. There was no, which archery's not really a sport of doing that a whole lot anyway. It doesn't lend itself to that. People like to do it, but you couldn't touch him. He worked at it. He knew he could do it, and that's what people coming into this need to realize is as you shoot, you're going to get better. It doesn't matter what you have in your hand. It matters how much you've practiced. It matters what you've got up here. The
Right.
confidence, the maturity, the discipline to execute a good shot. A bow's built to shoot. $200 bow is built to shoot. $1,000 bow is built to shoot. So shoot it and don't worry about it. Make the best shot you can make and leave the rest up to God.
Yeah. Yeah. The only bow you don't want to shoot is one that might break on you when you shoot it. Um,
Right.
I still have my very first recurve bow. It's a Van Pearson 25-pound fiberglass bow. I still have it. It still has a string that's many, many years old. I won't string it and pull it back because the fiberglass is starting to split a little bit. So I don't
Right.
want it to break. But I
Yep.
still have it. It's hanging around, and I, I'll never get rid of it.
Right.
Never shoot it again. But as my first bow I had when I was just you know 10, 12 years old, and I
Yep.
just keep it. I've gotten rid of other bows, but
Right.
now it's kind of it's fun, and I still have some arrows I made when I was in scouts, and back when I got my first fletching jig from an army surplus store here that was in town, and it was like $1.65 I paid for it, back in the 60s.
Yep.
Now the bits and burgers, they're going to run you $100 just for the jig, and 30, $40 for each clamp, and
Yep.
but
They
they're the
work.
best jigs.
I do like the
So
upgraded knob on the bits though.
yeah.
Like the Zenith or AAE just came out with one. But yeah, the bits is a good jig.
Well, and have my store, I've got 8 of them. So, and the straight clamps and the helical clamps, and as well as the 2 type receivers, one for cock feather out and one for cock feather up.
Yep.
Because if you're going to do traditional, you have to be out, and if you're
Right.
going to shoot, the regular prong type or dropaways, you want them down.
Right.
Um, so I have both receivers for it, and so I've got those and plus a few others. And when I had my store, I had those 8 plus another 12, and then I had a Joe Jan that would do 6. And before hunting season, they're all busy all day long. There's arrows fletching all day long.
Right. We
Now I
had
just do
shops.
it for myself and my son.
We had shops around here. They would have 12 on a big uh, circular sheet of
Yeah,
plywood with the swivel under it, so that way they could just work on one arrow, spin the table, work on the next, and go around. By the time they got to the starting point, they could put the next vein on and repeat the process until they were done.
yeah. When you have a lot of them on there, you can do that. I've been wanting to put mine on something like that. I just never did it, and now I probably won't because I don't fletch 8 at a time normally. I might get
Right.
6 jigs out and do 6 at a time, but anyway, if somebody wanted to get a hold of you on your program, how would they get a hold of you?
So for the Scott County Outdoor Team, um, you can contact me through Facebook or email at Aaron, Aaron, at godsarchers.com. You could contact my dad uh, through Facebook, Jerome Hill, or uh, email again, Greg at godsarchers.com. You could contact the Scott County Outdoor Team's Facebook page. Uh, Several different ways to get a hold of us there. Me personally, you can go through Facebook or the email for private coaching. Um, we have a ministry that we do. We didn't get to talk about it a whole lot on here, but we take the parts of the arrow to teach a Bible lesson, such as the veins of the arrow guide the arrow through flight, just as God's Word, the Bible, guides us through life. It says in Psalm 119, verse 111, that His Word is a lamp for our feet and a light for our path. And we'll go through the various parts of the arrow. Sometimes the lesson isn't archery related. Uh, just it depends on the age group and uh, who we have as to what lesson God leads us to do. After that, Um, everybody. It doesn't matter if you're 2 or 102, you get to shoot a bow. Um, we use the Matthews Genesis bow, so you can shoot them traditional style, but we have all of the bows as low poundage as they'll go. So if the 2-year-old wants to do it, they can. We might have to like put our thumb or something right under their fingers to get it back all the way, but
Yeah.
we'll find a way. We had a lady that was 90 something old in a wheelchair in a nursing home in Harlan, Kentucky, that could only use one arm. So me and Dad, we would hold the bow by the grip, kind of like this, and she would pull the string back, and she would move the bow however she needed it to let go. And we would usually have two hands on the bow just so nothing, the bow wouldn't slip or anything.
Right.
But no matter what, we find a way for whoever wants to get to shoot. And that is God's Archers on Facebook. We have a website, godsarchers.com. If you're typing it into Google, it's facebook.com/God's Archery. God is all capitalized. Reach out to us. We do a daily devotional. That is nonprofit. That is not, uh, we don't do that for any kind of personal benefit. That is strictly service. The only thing we do for personal benefit is the private coaching that I do. But the Scott County teams volunteer God's Archers as service. So if you're interested in any of that, just shout out to us.
Sounds good. Yeah. I know there's always a way to find a way to shoot. And why he come in and had MS and he couldn't do the normal slight bend, we had to lock him out, but we just made it work. And then I volunteered at the Nebraska Outdoor Expo this last year up in
Yep.
Sioux City, and you know who Matt Stutzman is?
Yes, the armless archer,
Yes, he was
one
up
of the
there. I met
best
him and talked
archers.
to him.
Yep.
No arms, and he's an archer.
Yep.
I got
He's a
got to
heck of
talk
a
to
shot
him
too.
and for quite a bit, and at one of the meals we ate, he was there. We sat with him and chatted with him for a while, and interesting story, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, there's a way.
Yep.
There's always a way to do something in archery, and um, my definition of archery is it's a stick with a string flinging another stick.
Yeah.
That's archery.
Yeah. That's all it is.
How the stick is shaped makes no difference.
Right.
So crossbow is archery, longbows, recurves, just anything is archery as long as the stick with a string flinging a stick.
Right.
And that's when I had my story, those shooting crossbows, you might want to bring a target in because they kind of get buried too deep. But
Yep.
the thing I wouldn't let you shoot is broadheads because it tears up targets. But,
Right.
so anyway, we've kind of run a little bit longer than I normally like to make these run, but kind of interesting stories, and
Yep.
definitely if you want to get a hold of Aaron, you're in what part of Virginia did you say you were in?
Lee County.
Lee County.
I'm on the Tennessee Kentucky end. I
Okay.
can work with anybody Northeast Tennessee, Southeast Kentucky, Northwest North Carolina. I'm in that general area.
Yeah. So, any of our listeners listening to this or watching this, if you're in that area, would like to connect up with them, definitely connect up to them. And I'm on the eastern end of Nebraska, right next to Nebraska, just outside of Omaha. And, if you want to connect in with me, just get a hold of me. You can leave comments and stuff in here. And you know, we talked about my Arch Talk 101 group. I'll leave a link in the description below on how you can join that group. It's a group of archers, helping other archers out. We have archers in there that have been shooting for 60, 70 years. The two archers that have been shooting, maybe 6 or 7 months. and all levels of stuff, and there's always people out there that can do stuff, between working on bows. I've been an archery instructor for 25 years. I mean, working on bows for about 20. So there's always somebody out there who can help you out. So once again, I'll leave a description in the link below, as well as I have a website, archertalk101.com. You can go out there. I have information out there. I post a podcast. I put, other tips and I might have out there. If I review anything, I'll put it out there. And just a good place to go for other information. And then I do offer a free 15-minute consultation for anybody interested in looking at archery. It's archery for you. And I'll also leave a description, uh, in the description, a link to get that form. Just fill out that form, ask a few general questions, get to know you, and then we can book a 15-minute call, see if maybe archery might be for you. And we'll just kind of go from there. And once again, I'd like to thank you, Aaron, for being on the call today. A lot of good information, and it was definitely a pleasure talking to you. And once again, my name is Roy Canterbury. I've been the host on Arch Talk 101 with my guest, Aaron Hill.
Pleasure being